Hi there, and welcome to episode 3 on our video podcast on creating a great workplace. My name's Doug Milburn. I'm here with my co-host Michael Pearson, and here's why we're doing this podcast. We believe that way too many people go to work every day and they just exist. They don't get joy, they don't get meaning out of their work they do and the organization around them. We think this is wrong. And we at Protocase and 45 Drives have developed a culture inside here that gives our people a reason to get up in the morning and look forward to going to work. And most of the time, when they're done their day, they feel like they did something meaningful, they feel like they're appreciated, they look forward to coming back again. We're incredibly proud of it, and we look forward, we're eager to share it with everybody, so that's why we're doing this podcast. So, Michael Pearson, we're going to talk about value statement today. I'm going to hand it over to you, and you're going to kind of pick my brain, I guess, today.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to dig in today to, I guess, a little bit of the how-to of creating a great workplace, creating a good culture. It has to start with something. So 2014, I believe, we created value statement, the ethical guidelines. So can you start by telling us what are values and what is an ethical guidelines and why is it important?
Yeah, sure. After running the company, we started in around 2003, and we formed a company. Things started going really, really well in the company, and realizing that we were going to grow this thing was always the plan. We're going to grow it, and then you grow up by bringing people in. Mm-hmm. Watching people, always a struggle in organizations dealing with people, right? And then we found a way to do it. We eventually looked at it and we said, we need to write this down. So your question, there's multiple parts to it. What are values? Values are, it's a definitional thing. What we use is that values are our view and feelings about behaviors. Values, how do you feel about people that steal things, for example? Well, we think that's really bad. That's a value. Mm-hmm. Right? Anyway, there's a whole bunch of values that relate to how people interact in the workplace. And and we grabbed that. We captured what we were doing. We were doing something right, and we captured it, and it's evolved over time into what's our value statement. And we use the words value statement and ethical guidelines interchangeably.
Yeah. So why isn't it just rules? Why isn't it just a big rule book? What's the difference between a rule and an ethical guideline?
Rules, like let's say the law, for example. You look at the practice of law, and we absolutely need laws. We can't work as a society, we can't work together as people. But we'll see that they're pretty simplistic, and it's a really base level thing, because they have to be simplistic if you're going to take them word for word. It's just those limitations of human language, the ability to write something down. Guidelines, principles. Here's the problem. When we get through our value statement, you'll see that there are certain things in it that are really diametrically opposed. We're going to get to the end of it. For example, openness, honesty, transparency is something that's critical inside our culture. We need to be open for various reasons. We'll talk about that. And then we talk about respect and tact. And how do you be, if you're respectful, if you're too open, you get to be blunt, mm-hmm. right? And if you're blunt, it can walk on respect. And the two things can coexist. They have to coexist. But otherwise we have to tell lies to people all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Tell them what they want to hear. They have to coexist. But it gets complicated. So good thing is, humans can do that, right? When they have guidelines, and then we ask everybody to balance and use something. And again, I'm getting down to the end of this, common sense. We talked a lot about common sense. We had fun talking about common sense over the years, figuring out what it is. Put it together with common sense. When it's written down as hard rules, we tend to lose common sense. So that's why they're guidelines. Now, all that said, if you clearly transgress on these things, you can't be in our company, because this is the way we roll together. Mm-hmm. This is how we look after each other inside this company.
So Okay, so guidelines. If I was looking at a guideline versus a rule, let's say, so a guideline, you're putting everything in the employee's hand to make a decision then, and where a rule is the decision's made for you.
Mike, that is the whole point of it,
Yeah.
to put it in our employees' hands. That is the whole point of it. I saw a long time ago, I started this company with my partner, Steve, and it said, if we wish to be firmly in command of everything, if we take authority over everything, well, we have responsibility for everything, and you can't grow that way. So you need to be able to hand that out. So what they are, in fact, the first line of our value statement, it says it's our social DNA is what it is. It's the code by which all the activities in here happen. All the big decisions and all the little decisions made by everybody every day. Each of us makes decisions. This is our social DNA. And we put this out there very specifically, and we train everybody in this. We said, this goes out there so you can come in every day, make decisions with reasonable confidence, and not worry about a scenario that you and I have agreed many times is really ugly. You got an employee, vast majority of all our employees come in each and every day. Nobody's coming in saying, I want to do a shitty job or I want to make mistakes.
No.
Right? So people come in, they make decisions on behalf of the organization, what they think is on behalf of the organization. And when you haven't given people the basis to make decisions, a good basis to make decisions, they'll make decisions that feel wrong. And then you or I or somebody else has to go to them and say, yeah, I know you come in here and you put your heart in this and you did your very best. And yeah, I'm going to slap you in the head and say, I tell you it's wrong. And that demoralizes this person. It shakes their confidence in making the next decision. And we're starting to go in a spiral. So you need to give people the guidance. If you want people to come in, make decisions so we all line up and march in the same direction together. We become incredibly powerful. When it's voluntary and we all wish to be here and we all make decisions move in the same direction, we become powerful. And that's why our organizations are just rocking, because we've given people the power to do that. And that it starts. It's not the only place. I mean, there's multiple layers down below there. There's content layers, but this is our social DNA.
Yeah. From somebody, like we talked about, my past, the military rules were very important to us. We followed all rules, and there wasn't a lot of decision making, I would say. Got better for a while. That could be challenging to people coming in, I must say, like for me coming in. So, how does somebody walk in here and go from a more rule-based world? And I do want to clarify that we have all kinds of rules here. We don't exist without our procedures that run everything that we do in this place every single day, obviously. But from that decision-making level where you're putting on me as the brand new employee to walk in and you tell me you either be here for on time, you can make the choice whether you're going to be on time for work or not. And what if I choose no?
Yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, number one, our culture has become powerful, right? Mm-hmm. When everybody buys into the values, they become social norms. And when people walk on social norms, the other people around them don't appreciate it. And it just works. The group gets a momentum and an energy. Somebody new comes in, number one, they sit down with me and they suffer a 1.5 hour training course on this stuff. And, which has become pretty good. It's very, very clear. So people get that, but then you have to live it. But it's relatively easy to live it because all of our groups now, everybody's really absorbed it, and they have. And then we take it down to, the idea, because we got these master guidelines, social DNA, doesn't mean we don't have rules. Being on time. In this organization, we look at it and saying, do you need to be on time? Right? I mean, that's just a custom in a lot of jobs. A lot of places have flex time. So we'll give flex privileges to anybody who can have them without it negatively affecting, if you've got to be in there, if you're in production and product is moving through the line, there's not much choice on that, right? You have to be there on time, otherwise everything shuts down. So now there's a starting time. Some of our R&D, our software developers, doesn't matter. I mean, if they're off hours or quieter and fewer distractions, so they can do whatever they want. So those guidelines, the rules flow from the guidelines, mm-hmm. Number one. Number two, everybody's good with rules if they understand why they're there.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's arbitrary rules that don't make sense, that bother
Yep.
I mean, some people don't mind. Some people just follow everything.
Mm-hmm.
But most human beings, if they see a rule and they know it's wrong, it tends to bug them a little bit. And at a minimum, they'll just disrespect it. Let me think an example. We have a road right by our company here that has a long stretch of highway that says 50 kilometers an hour, 30 miles an hour. And I don't think anybody drives the speed limit.
No.
They just disrespect the rule because it's just wrong.
Driving behind somebody that doing 50 is torturous too.
Yeah. So there we go. Rules. You think of rules, you think of social norms. Everybody just ignores that rule.
Yeah.
And the police drive by. They don't follow the rule.
Yeah. And so if we have a rule, and it's true, we have a rule that doesn't make sense, and we come across them. We make rules that are around. Sometimes they made sense at one time, and they don't make sense anymore. And we're able to look to our value statement, look at ethical guidelines, and say, okay, use a set of decision-making skills, which we'll go over when we talk about each of them, and go, okay, that rule doesn't make sense, and this meets all these needs, therefore we change it. And that's a beautiful thing.
You got it, Mike. Your rules should work for the organization.
Yeah.
The organization individuals should not work for the rules.
Exactly.
And that ability to change rules in a sensible way. Now, again, we need rules. This is not a world without rules. Mm-hmm. It's just our rules, if they don't make sense, they're up for debate. You don't change them individually, but we get together as a group and we can rewrite our own policies, rules, and everything else in there. And it's the way to do it. And doing that sensibly and doing it in a way that looks after every human being in here is really the secret to what we do.
That was I was just going to ask about, actually. One thing I found confusing at first, and became the thing I love the most, is guidelines allow you to deal with individuals, not rules. Everyone has to be here at 7 o'clock. I'll use the time one because everyone can relate to that. You have to be here at 7 o'clock. Okay, well, what if you can't? What if you have a life event, right? Those guidelines allow us to flex to that. The opposite culture that you'll see that in places, other places that I've worked, and I've seen it a bit here and there. Not so much prevalent anymore, but well, how come so and so gets to come to work at that time? How come they get to come in at 7:30 and we have to be here at 7? And you get that fairness thing pops out. I think when people really started understanding our culture here, that went away, and I think that's beautiful about our culture is that once people do understand that, well, no, it's not a general rule. I'm dealing with an individual. An individual has a personal commitment or responsibility or something going on in their life that we don't know about, and then they discuss it with us and we go, yeah, well, you come a half hour later, look after your kids, family, whatever. So I think it's the wonderful part about it, again, is that you're not stuck in the rules.
Yeah, if you have a culture, it's a me culture, it's not supportive of others, inherently supportive of others, then yeah, you can get things like jealousy working and things like this. And that's the negative side. Mm-hmm. The positive side is, what we look at, really just try to look at reality. What's the reality of the human condition? And I think one of the biggest realities is we're all individuals. So industrialism, I'll keep talking about, generalizing about industrialism. Industrialism, one of its problems is dehumanize people.
Yeah.
It's made us incredibly rich. And when I hear people kicking at capitalism and industrialism, I go, careful what you wish for. We are so rich, we live such an easy life today than we did 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. It's incredible. It's absolutely amazing what this has done for us. But coming together and working in larger organizations, when they don't get their culture right, it can be really dehumanizing because they set up rules and they treat everybody exactly the same. Oh, it's fair to treat everybody exactly the same. No, it's not fair to treat everybody exactly the same. It's much better, it's much fairer when you can adapt around to people's individuality. It just works better. Now, there's a matter of degree. This is not, I say this over and over again, it's not Barney the Purple Dinosaur land where we're all just happy and we hold hands. It's not. We come here, we've got to go to work, we've got to get our work done. The ultimate master here is our customer. If we serve our customers, they're happy, then they pay us and they come back and they do that again, and we exist and we thrive. That's our master. That's who we serve. So all this stuff is done in service of that. This is not in service of ourselves. So if you don't mix that up, all this individuality and adaptation is not so people come in here and kick their feet back. Okay? You can't be happy in the job unless you are successful to some degree. If you're really not successful, you'll never be happy in it. So you got to get in here, focus, be happy, be successful to be happy. And if your success and happiness are connected, if our employees aren't successful, the organization can't be successful. It's just, my God, that gets missed. It's just such an obvious thing. And to do that, we have to look after people's individual needs.
Yep. So we've been touching on a few of the guidelines as we've been chatting here. So, how do you want to dive into one at a time? Do you want to list them out what they are? How do you want to tackle this?
Well, you know what? Let's just go through this piece by piece. Maybe I can give a real quick overview. And again, we're going to do a few episodes now, so I'm hoping people are interested will stay tuned in this and show you how we tackle this problem. Okay, and hopefully someone get a little inspiration on it and see it and take it back into your workplace. That's why we wish to do this. So if I look at this and I give us here's a really quick overview of our value statement. Our value statement starts off with an introduction, and we'll dig through this piece by piece. The introduction, when we sit people in, we hire people, they get to sit down with me for an hour and a half. Sometimes it runs to 2 hours, depending on how interested they are in it. And we talk about why people go to work. And we just put the context around, the context that everybody came in here voluntarily. That's missed by everybody, and sometimes at workplace everybody feels like a victim, like they're forced to be there. So you're never forced to be there. We go through a bunch of stuff now. We'll dig into that in a little bit of detail. Once we've done that, we say, here's our prime reason to be. Our prime reason to be is because we serve customers. This is an opportunity for you to come and serve a piece of humanity. And we'll talk about why on that too, and why I think that's so incredibly important. You don't work for the boss here, you work for your customer. Secondly, we do it as a team. That's lost in so many workplaces. It doesn't work. We need everybody in here. I'm founder of the company or COO. Neither one of us can step out there, sit in a marketing chair, bring customers in, sell them, engineer the, whatever, or in 45 drives. We can't do it. It's a team effort, and we need everybody in here. Everybody has a place on it. So, team effort. So, and again, these things cascade. Okay? Serve our customers. We do it as a team. Next piece, it's cool. We'll dig into this one. It's really interesting. It is you must maintain good working relationships with everybody. So, and that actually, it's a guideline, but it's a guideline. Most people get it, and when we put that to them, we say that's your responsibility, because with work, you can learn to get along with anybody. Okay? And you can develop the people skills. If you don't have them, you can develop people skills. Some people do it naturally. You can get along with everybody. You don't have to like them, but you do have to interact with them in a respectful manner. Because if not, the place doesn't work anywhere near as well. Oh yeah, and you have a much worse day, so does the other person, and so do the people around you if you're carrying on conflict. So your responsibility to do that. Okay? And then we get into how to. So we need a team that gets along to serve our customers. How do we do that? Trust. This whole thing does not work if there's not trust. Okay? Trust flows into personal safety too, and we'll talk when we talk about the intro. We'll go into Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs at the base is personal safety. And if people don't trust the organization, whatever that is, if there's not trust to the higher up, it's a social hierarchy. If they don't trust who's up the social hierarchy, it's not working. If the top of the social hierarchy doesn't trust people on the ground floor layer, it's not going to work. And if the people beside in the social hierarchy at whatever level don't trust each other, it's not going to work. So we need trust. How do we get trust? Openness, honesty, transparency. We have to have an aspect of that. And that has to be very, in every group culture you get into has a different degree at which they respect openness. I mean, some cultures are like, well, just don't say stuff to people because you'll upset them. Okay? That's sort of an extreme. We push way over the other way towards openness, honesty, transparency. Why? The only way to trust each other is to be open with each other. And number two, there's a whole bunch of practical things like continuous improvement. You can't get to continuous improvement unless you got to record your mistakes. And how can people disclose a mistake if they don't trust the boss?
Yeah.
Or they don't trust people around them and say, just admit I made a mistake, I broke something, I made a bad part in the plant. A good whap you in the head. And they go, yeah, I'm not telling you about that next time.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. So you become forgiving of that, and you tell people you're allowed to make mistakes, and they got to trust you. So we get trust, openness, honesty, transparency, and they get that connection. So then we get to the last major one. There's a minor one comes after that. The last major one is respect. There's been lots of stuff in literature over the I guess centuries, playing with the whole idea of what if humans were just completely open, and you get to it, and you get to, if you're too blunt, you can step on other human beings' feelings. We recognize completely in this organization that human beings are human. Wow, what a revelation! And we human beings feel our way through the world. Our subconscious mind generates our feelings, and we use our rational mind generally to make sense out of our feelings. Somebody's blunt in the pursuit of openness, honesty, transparency, they become blunt. And everybody knows what these words mean. If we're too blunt and you offend somebody, you start to do relationship damage. So it starts to step on maintaining good personal relationships. So how do you glue that together? Really simple. Respect. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, as Aretha said.
Yeah.
And so we'll dig into respect a little bit on this, as I do with everybody in the company. And so we got these things. We got some things that conflict. Openness, honesty, transparency can conflict with relationship. Trust is necessary. Openness, honesty, transparency has some opposition to respect, which can be resolved. So you look at these things. Why are they guidelines, not rules? Because it's complicated. It's humans, it's life, it's relationships. They got complexity to it. We can all do it. We have different abilities. We can all do it. It's amazing in humans. The minute you ask them to come in and commit, they see something they want, they like the culture, they like the job, they see it in front of them, and you say to them, here's what I need you to do. I need you to figure out how to maintain good working relationships with everybody. People take on the challenge. It's just amazing how people here, or 300 plus people, have figured out how to do this. And when they figure out how to do it, it enhances their ability to work together. See? And particularly we're very focused on who our customers are, what they need, and they bought in. We're here to serve them. So everything lines up. Everybody works together to just a huge extent. Oh, it's a little bit of conflict around the edges. You have to have that. We got stuff coming on conflict resolution. You learn to embrace conflict. If you got strong relationships, you embrace conflict. And it's not interpersonal conflict. Conflict just becomes working out the differences that we have, which becomes a good thing. So we got respect. So we got all this stuff. So the very last element is common sense, and we'll have some fun with common sense. Common sense is such a cool thing, I'd love to hear. Actually, it's just great. It's an open conversation. Maybe anybody who's listening to this, if you're intrigued by common sense, like we became, to really figure out what common sense is, I'd love to get a conversation about that going.